also now a commissioner for the Commission on the Status of Women, leading women across the state in a nonpartisan fashion. So that really counts. And sitting on the board of things like Little Light Christian School for the children of incarcerated parents, sitting on the board of Big Brothers and Sisters, and sitting on other boards across Children's Hospital for these many years, where my husband and I set up a fellowship to serve the children across the state and across the region. My family's heritage is Lebanese. We came here generations ago to absorb and to be part of the American dream. We escaped persecution across the seas, and we came here to live out the American dream. And my message is, everybody here can do that. Anybody can do that. Our government works best when they absorb what they're supposed to be doing, and that is the protection of life, liberty, and property. Let's get back to it.
Thank you very much. Okay, so as I noted, since there are people listening at home, I will have time to applaud at the end of each round of questions, so I just want to make sure we give them all the time we can. With that, let's get to the conversation, which is the title of our first round of questions. Storm, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question during this round. Storm and I want to ask the candidates about the elephant not in the room. That would be incumbent Mayor David Holt, who has declined to participate in this debate. It's a free country, and Mayor Holt is certainly free to not stand up here and answer questions. Maybe he thinks I'm Matlock, I don't know. But I'm sure the other candidates with us tonight have opinions on the matter, so Storm, let's start there.
Sure, we'll start with Mr. Urbanic. What is your reaction to Mayor Holt choosing not to participate tonight, and why do you believe events like these are so important?
Well, it's an absolute disgrace. He should be ashamed of himself, because this is a slap in the face to every voter in Oklahoma City. But this is part of a pattern of not wanting to answer questions. When I filed that lawsuit against him in his unlawful use of the Riot Control and Prevention Act, he ended his phony disaster declaration the day before the big hearing. So this tells you that he doesn't want to answer these questions. So what we need to really be asking is, what would he have said that he doesn't want us to know about? What schemes does he have coming up that he doesn't want us to hear about? Because clearly he's made the political calculation that he is harmed less by staying home than coming here. He needs to get out from under his desk, stop being a coward, and show up and answer questions.
Again,
there we go. There's that applause again. Storm?
Yeah, 60 seconds to Mr. Lawson, same question about the mayor.
Sure, thank you. Testing. I think his absence speaks volumes about where we are as a city. And this is not the first time Mayor Holt has not shown up. I think I have a personal experience about his inability to be communicative. So when we were going through my situation with my friend Julius Jones, whether you are for or against a particular case, if you're a mayor of a city that has a national case in your lap, I think it's your responsibility to adhere to that and at least make a statement about this particular situation. So his silence spoke volumes to me, and it's speaking volumes tonight to you all that he doesn't want to be here. So the question we have to ask is, what is he hiding?
Thank you. Mrs. Hefner?
Both of these gentlemen have articulated that well, but I want to say about Mr. No-Show Holt, Mr. Mayor McSelfie, he shows up all sorts of places and takes the picture and leaves. And I get those reports regularly when I go visit all 8 wards. I have been to all 8 wards. Our family has business across these wards and has for many, many years. I'm familiar with each one of the wards, and when I walk into there, I always ask them, have you seen Mayor Holt lately? A number of them, namely 5 of them, say, no, we never see him. That is the job of the mayor. I understand what a mayor's supposed to do. You're supposed to be present. You're supposed to be willing and listening to the people that you are serving. It's very, very important that they are able to know that they can come to their mayor. The mayor carries the message. The mayor sets the vision. It's important to understand that the mayor is the one who controls the municipality's face, and that face is what's put out across the entire state, really, because Oklahoma City is able to affect all the other municipalities. He's failing at his job. It's time to elect someone else. Please elect me, Carol Hefner, as your mayor.
Thank you very much. Quick show of hands. If you are elected mayor this year and decide to run for re-election in 2026, will you commit to participating in another public debate like this?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now that we've got that out of the way, Mr. Lawson, I have the next question for you. Which issue facing our city do you believe flies under the radar and doesn't get enough discussion?
Sure. So I think one of the components for me is our growing homelessness rate. I think that the city has done an inefficient job at putting programs and resources into place to address this issue. Now, there are some programs out there. Don't get me incorrect on that. There's some programs that are still existing that does address that. However, I think my vision for OKC is how to eliminate homelessness. So here's my vision. So I want to build a homeless transitional complex. This complex will involve two components that has never, in my opinion, been addressed, and that's the mental health issue, right? Mental health resources is the problem. What changed my life was feeding the homeless with my dad, and my dad is a pastor 5 years ago. That changed my life. These folks were intelligent, they were communicative, they looked like me. I thought, well, why are you on the streets? So I think as a city, we can build a complex that gives funding for mental health resources, job training, and allow these people to re-enter our society.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Hefner, 60 seconds to you. Same question. What issue flies under the radar or doesn't
There
get
are
mentioned?
actually two. It would be crime and homelessness, and many times those two go hand in hand. You know, I've had the opportunity to speak now with 92 homeless people. I stop and I speak with them. I engage with the people in the community. And I find out that 89 of them are from the West Coast, ironically. They were given a one-way bus ticket to Oklahoma City specifically. They didn't know where they were going. And when I asked them why they were here, they didn't know. And they just said that they wanted to take the cash and they just wanted to go somewhere, but they didn't think they would never be able to get back. One woman told me that she just wanted to go home. Building a complex keeps them here, and it brings more in because the word gets around, right? We don't want that for them. We want them to be able to go home. And they tell me, I want to go home. The one woman from San Diego said, that is my home. They see themselves as having a home. We call them homeless, but they're not. And with crime, we need to drive the crime rate down. Our police are underpaid, our firefighters are underpaid, and they need to be taken care of. They're demoralized, and it's time to change that. And it will change with me.
Thank you very much. And you're saying that 89 of 92 people you spoke to, so they're from the West Coast?
Exactly.
And they got a bus ticket?
One-way bus ticket to Oklahoma City and some cash, and they didn't know who gave it to them, but it was specifically to our city.
Those are some interesting odds. Mr. Urbanic, same question to you.
Absolutely.
What's under the radar, what's not discussed enough?
So I absolutely agree with the two other candidates that homelessness is a problem. Hopefully we'll get to talk about that more in depth. But my issue, it's so under the radar that neither of them brought that up. Let's talk about the buildings that have still been closed, our government buildings for Oklahoma City. The police department lobby is closed, the administrative building, all but one floor or one room, and City Hall. And two of them say they're closed for renovation while you look in the window, at least at the police lobby. There's no renovating going on. And so we need to ask, why are these buildings still closed? Because we need to get business done. I'm talking to contractors, and they're experiencing delays because they can't get their plans approved because things are going back and forth by email, and it takes a long time. And so this is causing delays, which is causing increase in prices, and a similar thing in the police department. Used to be able to just walk in, get a police report, and walk out. Now it's this very convoluted process where you have to mail things back and forth, slowing things down. Let's open back up Oklahoma City government so we can do business.
Thank you very much. Storm?
All right, our next question will begin with Mrs. Hefner. What most qualifies you to be mayor of Oklahoma City, and what's your best personality trait for the job?
Oh my gosh, my best personality trait is people. I love hanging out with people. I love making connections. I love discussing with them. Good, hard, whatever the discussion, it's worth it, because you know what, we're Oklahoma Cityans and we're all in this together, right? But I need to be able to let the people know that I am ready to step in and step out, and that is exactly what my background is. I go into nonprofits, I work with people who are needy, I do it all the time, I've done it my whole life, I've connected with people, and I think that it's time that we have a mayor that reaches out all the time, every day, sets town halls, sets times for the people in all 8 wards to get with them physically and personally. And I just heard about City Hall, and that is true. Being a developer, I know that permitting is backlogged. And it's not because the doors are closed, but it's because they won't put out the permits. They're redlining projects, and they won't let development take place. And Mayor Holt is trying to bring in a left-wing organization out of California to dictate what our police do and what our developers do, and that's going to stop with me. We're not going there.
Thank you. 60 seconds, Mr. Urbanic, same question. What most qualifies you for this job?
Yeah, well, I have a proven track record of success fighting for a lot of people. When these businesses were shut down, I was on the front lines opening them back up. Everybody else was on the sidelines. In fact, one of the people I'm running against was actively fighting me to keep those businesses shut. And let's just say, that was a lot of work. My wife can remember many weekends during that period of time where I was at my office very late working on those briefs. And so I think it's clear that I will be working very hard for the people of Oklahoma City at great sacrifice to myself. And this was also sacrifice to my family as well. And the things that I've done to prove that I am a hard worker for conservative values are the things that I've done. And I don't have to say, hey, look at me, listen to me, I'm Mr. Conservative, because what I'm saying, I put my money where my mouth is, and I do what I say I'm going to do, and that's proven through my track record.
Mr. Lawson, 60 seconds.
Sure, thank you. I think what qualifies me to be mayor is my commonality and my relatability. I'm a father, I'm a husband of 19 years, I have 3 beautiful daughters. I've been laid off before, right? I've been in a position where I didn't have income. I had a position where I did have income. So I think my servanthood with my mentoring programs that I developed with Oklahoma City Public Schools allows me to connect with the common person. My slogan is people over politics. I want to find that magical spot and moment where we can access everything we need for all the people, no matter what side of the city you may be from, what your background may look like. I think my commonality and my experience on a day-to-day basis and my servanthood will serve me as the best mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're doing pretty good on time. I've got another bonus question here at the end of this first round, and I'm going to open it up to whoever wants to go first. So, unfortunately, despite what we would all like, the COVID-19 pandemic is still upon us. As prospective mayoral candidates, what is the City County Health Department doing well, and what could the City County Health Department improve upon? It's an open forum here.
I'm going to speak to that.
There we go.
The City County Health Department has been dictating. They came down to the council when I was down there fighting the mandate, and I fought the Mayor Holt and the council's idea that they were going to impose a mandate, a vaccine mandate, and a mask ordinance, which carried with it a fine. So I went down there and fought it alongside my husband, and we won. And they had the City County Health Department down there, and they were giving erroneous statistics, and we had a gentleman get up and disprove them. That is a problem when we have a City County Health Department that is professing to be the authority, and they're giving out erroneous information that is inaccurate to the public only to be able to push a political narrative. We've got to stop this. It is between a person and their doctor as to what course they want to take to protect their health. It is not about the politicians in local government, state government, or federal government dictating to you what you will do with your health. That is a privacy issue. HIPAA laws prevail still to this day, and I will stand on that. No mandates, no vaccine, no ordinance.
Thank you. I want to ask real quick, give me an example of the erroneous data, because I think that some people in the public would say that politicians...
He was giving statistics about the number of people who were in the hospital, who had been... who were infected or not infected, and they were flying in the face of a doctor who got up to disprove that. He was with one of the hospital systems. That was very interesting to note. And right after that was said, he exited the room and didn't want to answer questions. So his numbers were wrong about hospitalizations. His numbers were wrong about ventilation that was being used on these particular people in ICUs. And so, yeah, it didn't work out well for him.
Thank you. I know we got some people fact-checking it. What month was that? Do you remember? No worries. We'll figure it out. Mr. Lawson, Mr. Urbanic, next. 1 minute.
Yeah, so I've actually been on the receiving end to some degree of this health department. Somebody that works in my building reported me for not wearing a mask. They came out and talked to my building manager, and he's like, so what am I supposed to do about this? Of course, he did nothing. But this is an example of how our government agencies are being abused by this administration. Our police as well have been sent out to enforce mask mandates, and they've been sent out to enforce this use of the Riot Control and Prevention Act, threatening these workers with arrest. And so I think this is part of a pattern with the mindset that our current mayor has, is that he's using these agencies to enforce things that, let's just say, they could be spending their time doing something better.
Thank you. Mr. Lawson, a minute to you.
I don't know what the data looks like for the city county health department, but in my perspective, I think when it comes to public safety, whether you're talking about a mask mandate or a vaccination, I think we already went past that mode of a shutdown. So I think going forward, of course, everybody's not for a shutdown. However, when it comes to certain industries, when you're flying a plane, right, when you're flying a plane, they still have a mask mandate, and that's because of public safety. So I think it's a matter of not looking at the data, but looking at for the people and what public safety looks like and what that measurement looks like going forward. So I will be the one to take a look at data and take a look at about public safety. So I won't give a straight answer whether I am for or against mandates, but I am for the public safety aspect of what that looks like to keep people safe.
So you're against a mask mandate. You are ambivalent? Neutral. Okay.
I filed the only, if not at least the first lawsuit against mask mandates in this state.
And I fought the city council.
Thank you. I don't mean thank you for that. I just mean we're moving on to round two. Storm, we have round two. I've lost track where I am on this sheet.
Yeah, our second round of questions will focus on city finances and infrastructure issues. Candidates will have 90 seconds to answer this round. Mr. Lawson, I think Trace has the first question for you.
Thank you, Storm. You're a pro. Mr. Lawson, beyond being a spokesperson for the city, the elected mayor in Oklahoma City essentially serves and functions as a member at large of the city council. Thank you, Marty, wherever you are. Sometimes they act as a swing vote on important topics. When it comes to Oklahoma City's budget, do you believe funding has been distributed evenly and fairly to all wards?
Yeah, so I took a look at the budget today, and I understand some of the allocations that we currently have. I feel like that there's a chunk of money coming through sales tax that is allocated to the police budget that is, I feel, is robust. So what I would do is take a look about what that budget is for police and figure out how we can take that protection to the next level. So what do I mean by that? I mean the aspect of community policing. I feel like that we need police. I am not for defunding the police. However, I am for community policing. So I would take a look about how much money is really allocated towards that particular area to navigate that relationship between law enforcement and citizens. It's not a secret that Oklahoma City and Oklahoma has the #1 incarceration rate. I don't think that's by accident. I think that's by a systematic design. So I think I would want to take a look about what different pockets within this system that we could improve and or adjust.
Okay, thank you. When we get to round two in just a minute, we're going to talk about round three, I guess, is public safety. Just real quick, do you believe the budget has been allocated fairly and evenly to all wards?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Hefner, same question to you, 90 seconds.
No. We have not allocated fairly and equitably. What we need to be looking at is we need to be looking at the priorities of this city and where we are falling short. And that is how it's going to be done fairly under my administration as mayor of Oklahoma City. We need to look at the ills, we need to look at the things that we're up against that are rising and causing problems pervasively across the 8 wards. Right now, like I said, we've got crime, we've got homelessness. Those things need to be adjusted appropriately. And that always needs to be the case. Every time that you are serving, every time we look at budget going through, we need to take a look at what's being allocated, how it's being allocated, and to where it's being allocated. It is not being allocated fairly. Our police and our fire need more allocation. They need more money to be able to do their job and to raise the morale. They are one of the lowest paid municipalities in this state. We are the largest municipality in this state with the largest amount of crime. They need to be given priority, and it's not being done right now. There are a number of other issues that can be looked at, and I feel like what we need to do is we need to sit down and we also need to have an audit of the MAPS program. That's another thing that needs to be done with regard to the money. That was a $1 billion package that we voted on with 14,000 people voting out of nearly 400,000 voters. That's no landslide, according to No-Show Holt. He called that a landslide, not a landslide. $1 billion, and we don't know where the money's going. I say we do an audit there too. We look at the budget and we allocate according to necessity. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Urbanic, same question to you. Do you believe funding has been distributed evenly and fairly to all wards?
No, I don't think so. And you ask the people in Cleveland and Canadian counties, and they will certainly say it hasn't. Our current mayor has turned a blind eye to those areas outside of downtown. We're constantly coming up with new ways to spend money on these feel-good projects that not many people use, and we don't have the money to spend on. My best example that I use is the streetcar. And we are wasting almost $5 million per year. So in 12 months, we spent from the city subsidy $4.7 million. This is from an open records request. And then in the same amount of time, we received $53,000 in fares. That is disgraceful. So my plan, get rid of the streetcar, reallocate that money to things that people actually care and use about, like our roads that are in terrible condition, raise pay for the officers as well. And I'm saying to my great fellow citizens of Oklahoma City, in Cleveland and Canadian counties, the cavalry is on the way.
Thank you, Mr. Urbanic. Storm, you have the next question.
All righty, the next question, we're going to go to Mrs. Hefner first. Let's talk TIFs, or Tax Increment Finance District. Oklahoma City has 14 TIFs, which capture a portion of sales taxes or property taxes to reinvest in local infrastructure as a way to encourage private development. Which TIFs are working, which TIFs are not, and what's your general TIF philosophy?
All TIFs are unnecessary. If you live in a free market economy and you live in America and you own a business, if your business is viable, it should be able to succeed. We should not be funding TIFs. That is not the job of the government. Anytime you do things like that, you bloat the government, you grow the bureaucracy. And the problem is, our definition of government is to protect life, liberty, and property. That's it. It is not to be able to underscore and throw safety nets and pick and choose winners and losers. That is what TIFs are about. It's about picking winners and losers in our communities, and I disagree with it. I think it's the wrong approach, and I think TIFs are a bad idea. I would revisit those, and most probably would be done with the TIF programs. When it comes to looking at everything across, I think that Mr. Urbanic brought up Canadian County and Cleveland County. We have businesses there. I know those people intimately. Sheriff Chris West over in Canadian County endorsed me. He's a wonderful friend, and he knows that I know the issues on that side of the state. It's very important to be able to visit each and every one, but know what's going on there, not just because you visit, because you're a candidate, because you're there all the time. That is where we have businesses where we are growing development, and where I want to see those areas grow and succeed. Also in Cleveland County, I know those people well. They're my friends, and I have family there. I'm very close to their issues. It's very important to visit with them, not when you're just a candidate, but all the time. I've been doing that for years. Thank you.
Mr. Urbanic, which TIFs are working, which are not, and what's your TIF philosophy? 90 seconds.
Well, in order to figure that out, we need to do a performance audit. I am for doing a performance audit not only on the TIF districts, but the MAPS projects, because we really need to get down and see how much of our money is being wasted. But in my mayoral run, I did a lot of research on TIFs, and these things are fairly confusing. And so I did pretty well in law school, but trying to wrap your head around these TIFs. And so I'm going, it is not something that I support. And the benefits are questionable at best. It sounds nice when people are describing them, but there's a lot of unintended consequences, things like the value of people's homes in the surrounding area. Do they want that happening to them, or do they want the increase from taxes that they're having to pay? So I don't think the benefits are as marketed.
Mr. Lawson, 90 seconds on TIFs.
Yeah, I think TIFs can be beneficial if used properly. I think there's some areas in the city that can benefit from economic development. I think TIFs is an opportunity to look some of those areas that may have been underserved, if you will, when it comes to a development opportunity. So there's a lot of different type of TIFs. So I think as mayor, I will look to see which ones are being beneficial and which ones are not being beneficial. So I think the mechanism within itself can be positive. We got to take a look about what that economic development is looking like.
We're not ready yet to say if you have any that you think are working or aren't working.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Urbanic, I have the next question for you. In the most recent city satisfaction survey, the top 2 service areas identified as resident priorities are better streets and improved traffic flow. Ride with me for a little while, you hear me complain about that. If you could wave a magic wand and fix one specific traffic or road problem in this town, what would it be?
Well, the traffic and the road problem would be the potholes. I mean, I talk, especially the people in Cleveland and Canadian counties are talking about how they feel like they need an alignment to their car every time they come to and from work. And you all need to go and see the part of 5th Street as you're going east onto 235. It's filled with a bunch of patches and potholes. I did a Facebook Live video out there. I'm going, hey, if this is the area that our mayor and city council are supposedly focusing on, this area of downtown, and the roads are this bad, imagine what the roads are like outside of this area, which they're quite bad. So that is absolutely a priority. And not just fixing roads to say, hey, we fixed them, we patched the pothole, but actually putting in a quality fix. And I've also proposed something for traffic that I call stoplight reform. And I'm sure we've all been sitting at a stoplight for what seems like forever when nobody else is going through the intersection. Let's make these stoplights smart so we can get to where we're going efficiently.
Thank you very much. I'm hearing a dinging. Is anybody hearing a dinging? Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't losing it up here, right? Okay. It's been a long week. Mr. Lawson, I believe the same question to you. If you could fix one specific traffic or road problem, what would you do?
Yeah, I would have to second Mr. Urbanic. You know, potholes. I've been a victim of potholes. Yeah, my truck lost an axle. I won't get into that, but that's a whole different story. But yeah, so potholes for me would be number one. I think the city has a lot of work to do with potholes. I think y'all probably can concur with that. So definitely potholes for me, and I will want to take a survey about what all those streets and all those potholes look like, and let's get those bad boys fixed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lawson. Mrs. Hefner, same question to you.
Well, I think it's easy to talk about this because No-Show Holt here has not done anything about it and seems to not really care. As I said, he doesn't go into many of the wards, so he doesn't even know what those roads look like. But I will tell you, because I am involved in commercial development, I understand how roads are built. I understand what it takes to build a quality road. And what they continue to do is they do continue to patch the potholes. But if you don't understand how a road is built, then you can't understand how to fix a road long-term. Long-term is the key to this whole thing. If you're going to put the money in, make it last, right? So you can't use asphalt. Asphalt is a porous, soft substance. And a lot of people say, we're going to fix that road, and they give a thumbs up, and then they pull up what's there, and then they lay down another beautiful asphalt road with the same result in a very short amount of time. It takes concrete, it takes aggregate. I know how to build a road. I know what it takes to do that, and I know where they need to go. And they are in the outlying areas all the way into Ward 7, Ward 8, Ward 4, 5, 1, and 3 are all being ignored because the center of the city, you will see a lot of good work, except for the road that we just came in on to get to Douglas right here. I just noticed another one. But it's all asphalt. That's what they use. Asphalt doesn't work. You have to lay the proper concrete and the proper aggregate. I know how to do that. I know the process, and I know the different contractors to get that done. And so I'll be pushing hard to take care of those. With regard to traffic patterns, very important. I understand traffic patterns too, and it matters the count, and it matters the time of day. We can fix that too.
Thank you very much, Melissa. It sounds like you might get a new road leading up to the auditorium at the Douglas there. That would be the priority. The correct answer is all the stoplights that are not synchronous on Northwest Expressway. Sorry, just for the record. Okay, I didn't put this debate on not to say that, right? We have, wait a minute, we have a bonus question. Storm?
Yeah, I would have gone with Penn and Memorial, but...
Oh, no, okay.
Okay, let's talk MAPS, the 1 cent sales tax credited with helping transform the city. We've already heard some comments about this evening, but Mr. Urbanic, you've criticized some MAPS projects as destroying the very reason people come here. Mrs. Hefner, you've said that some MAPS projects have no value and generate no revenue. Mr. Lawson, you've said more money should be going to homeless services. But in 2019, Oklahoma City voters approved the latest MAPS package with 72% of the vote. If these projects are so popular and people are willing to pay for them, what needs to change and why? This is open to all three of you, whichever wants to
Well,
take.
they aren't really popular. What they did with Maps 4 is they took things that had very narrow appeal, a bunch of them, smushed them together, and then once you got all those narrow constituency groups voting for it, then it passed. And I did not support Maps 4. I, of course, certainly do not support the streetcar, which was in Maps 3. But we're under no obligation to continue funding Maps projects or to even build ones that have been approved. And so that's why I talk about defunding the streetcar. And keep in mind that subsidy, if you look at the reports from Embark, it comes from the general funds. That money can be reallocated elsewhere.
Mrs. Hefner, Mr. Lawson?
I'll take it. I'll tell you what, I was the only one who fought against Maps 4 publicly. I went on morning shows. I challenged Mayor No-Show Holt to join me and debate this issue. There were 16 projects in this last Maps 4, and as I said, there were only 14,000 people who voted in that election out of nearly 400,000 voters. 14,000, okay, so 76% of 14,000, what is that number? And they called that a landslide election. It was not a landslide. They put in those other items so that they could put the pork in there. And let me tell you something about contracts. Contracts can be very, very dangerous. There's a lot of corruption going on with these contracts. I know where to look. That's why we need an audit of the MAPS programs. And with those 16, they're very disjointed. Many of them are social programs. As I said before, the purpose of government is the protection of life, liberty, and property. That is what we have to keep our focus. We have to stay in the lane, and we have to keep doing that. Social programs are for faith-based organizations. They're for private entities to be able to come in and rescue those situations, those people that are involved, those things that are needy across our city. And that is where it becomes a beautiful symbiotic relationship, when private groups and nonprofits and faith-based come together with the city to take care of what needs to be done in the social realm. But the city does not need to be funding those. That is not the role of government. And once we go back to conservative principles, we can get it right. We can have solvent projects, and we can reassess and reallocate those monies, which needs to be done.
Mr. Lawson, anything on maps that needs to change?
Sure. So I think one of the amazing moments of the Maps 4 is the allocation for youth centers. Well, I was a huge benefit as a kid coming through Oklahoma City with the youth centers and the access of mentoring and tutoring under my umbrella. I think that line item is going to be amazing because education for me changed my life. So I have an idea about what these youth centers should look like and encompass, right? An educational tool, a mentoring tool, a tutoring tool, life skills. We know that every kid is not going to go to college. So to keep kids, I'm a college professor, so the number one thing I ask my students is, how many of y'all going to stay in Oklahoma when you get your degree? And everybody does not raise their hand. So I got to figure out what will keep this next generation in Oklahoma City. I think our youth centers will be an amazing way to capture that under one umbrella to help prepare them, even if they don't go to college, to be successful Oklahoma City citizens.
Mr. Lawson, you praised a MAPS project there. Are there any that you aren't in favor of?
Say that one more time, please.
Or are there any, you praised a MAPS project there, but are there any on the current slate that you don't agree with, or any that you'd like to see added?
Anything you'd like to see change in the next iteration, potentially?
Yeah, I think one line item that kind of stuck out to me was about some of the allocation for parks. Right, I don't know what that looked like because the dollar amount was so small. I was like, we're going to put like a little splash pad at a particular part. So I think that needs to be either looked at or taken away, or figure out how to reallocate that. Because I think, in my opinion, the dollar amount doesn't suffice about the benefit for citywide. So that's one line item that I would change.
I want to ask one quick follow-up, Mr. Urbanic. You said, I believe, you're the attorney, I'm not, but you said that we're under no obligation to build the projects listed in Maps 4. Explain that to me a little bit so that our fact checkers can make sure we know whether that's the case.
I don't remember the exact case case name. Maybe Steve Hunt can help me out. But no, it's my understanding that we don't have to continue funding these MAPS projects, and we don't have to fund the ones that have already been voted on. So that's.
Well,
right? There's no mandate to do
We'll
that.
go from there. Ms. Hefner, 30 seconds to you.
I will tell you that when the people vote, it's your fault if you did not show up to vote or vote it up or vote it down. When it's been voted through, unfortunately, we have a vote. We have to abide by the people's will. That is the truth of the matter. That is why it's so important. Elections have consequences, people. It is up to us to step up and get to the polls and vote when we don't believe in something or when we do believe in something. Listen, pay attention, and have your antennas up. I'm going to tell you right now that with this situation, we have got two in particular that really rub me the wrong way. I have adopted dogs. I love animals, but $587 a square foot for an animal sanctuary or an animal play, it's crazy. We don't even build beautiful homes for that. So we need to relook at allocating the monies to the proper silos where they will have the most benefit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's the end of round two. Give our candidates a round of applause. Give Storm a round of applause, too. He's doing a good job over there. Our third round today is titled Flashing Lights and Contract Fights. We're going to talk about public safety. I think a lot of people care about that issue. I've got the first question for you, Mrs. Hefner. Incumbent Mayor David Holt was endorsed by the Oklahoma City Fraternal Order of Police last year, but you told me recently that you think the boots walking the beats will end up supporting you. What is the biggest difference between you and Mayor Holt when it comes to the topic of policing in Oklahoma City?
Let me tell you something. Once I brought this up and I brought to the attention the police and what the pressures are that they're under in Oklahoma City, all of a sudden, Mayor No-Show Holt, shows up and decides he's going to give them a mere pittance of a raise and he's going to give them some guns. You know what? That wouldn't have happened without me speaking. Can you imagine what would happen if I'm mayor? That's without me being mayor. I actually got some results. The point is that he does not understand the importance of life, liberty, and property and the protection thereof in our Constitution. That is of utmost paramount importance to me, and it should be to you. It produces a civilized society, and that is where we should be. Yes, that endorsement came out. I talked to Mark Nelson. We had long talks. We had 3 meetings on this, and they gave that endorsement long before I was ever in the race, and they just said, well, we don't typically walk it back. We're a union. Now, I have cousins who are on the police force, and they said, we don't always listen to the union. We don't appreciate that he did that. We don't like what Mayor Holt's done to our force because they've been demoralized under Mayor Holt, under Mayor No-Show Holt. He doesn't listen to them. When I am mayor, I won't be asking them to come beg for crumbs. I will be going to them routinely and saying, what do you need? What can I help you with? What will help to give better policing to our population across the city? That is what a mayor does. Shows up, listens, applies the knowledge, and works with the people that are supposed to be working to protect life, liberty, and property.
Thank you. Mr. Urbanic, 90 seconds to you. Same question. What is the biggest difference between you and Mayor Holt on policing?
I've done a lot of work as a criminal defense attorney, and that is not something that I'm ashamed of. I'm quite proud of it. And I told that to the FOP when I talked to them, and I said this: I've represented hundreds of people, watched hundreds of hours, if not over 1,000 hours, of police body cam footage, much of that from OCPD. And I've seen nothing but professionalism from them. I've seen them go out of their way for people when they didn't have to. And so this is a position of knowledge that I can speak with that nobody else has. Because when you have people out there protesting, saying the police are doing this, the police are doing that, I can actually stand with the police and say, well, you know what? They're not. Because I've seen them. I've seen them in the thick of things at the most tense part of their job. And I also told them that I'm a qualified standardized field sobriety test instructor, and anytime they need an officer to go back out on the street, I'd be glad to fill in for them and teach those officers myself.
Thank you very much. I could say the alphabet backwards, ZYXWVUTSRQ. Mr. Lawson, 90 seconds to you. What is the biggest difference between you and Mayor Holt on the topic of policing in Oklahoma City?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference for me is the relationship that David Holt has with certain communities. I don't think he understands the dynamic for certain communities and how that relationship is revolved back to police. I don't think he's had enough conversations. I don't think he's had enough meetings. I don't think he's dove enough deeper into the idea of what this looks like for all of Oklahoma City. We have to be mindful that our population is divided between multiple type of ethnicities. So I think that David Holt hasn't drilled down enough to figure out, well, what does the police look like in certain communities, and what does that relationship look like, and how are the citizens being treated in all communities? So as mayor, I will have that conversation, that tough conversation about what police does and how they treat all individuals in Oklahoma City.
All right.
Thank you.
Our next public safety question will be to Mr. Urbanic first. Last year, an independent consultant hired by the city recommended 2 OCPD policy changes for officers involved in shootings. One, that the officers be interviewed before the end of their shift, not currently the 48-hour waiting period. The second recommendation was that officers not watch body camera footage prior to being interviewed. What do you think of those recommendations, and what are your thoughts on the broader topic of police accountability?
Yeah, so I think those are fair. Just to kind of put this in perspective with how I operate as a criminal defense attorney is whenever I have a client, I have them write down their story. Tell me your version of events. They write it down, send it to me. I do that before they watch the video because I don't want the video or even the report to affect how they're going to give their narrative. So I think those are fair. Anything else? Okay.
That's it?
That's good.
Mr. Lawson, 90 seconds. What do you think of the 2 policies? One, that officers should be interviewed before the end of their shift, and the second, that they shouldn't be allowed to watch the body camera before the interview.
That's a great question. I think it's a matter of what transparency looks like, accountability looks like, and what the past records look like when we talk about reportable type activity. So I would say let's take a look about what the caseload looks like, or what the perspectives on different type of activities look like, and then we can backtrack to see if that policy really fits the need. Well, I don't have the data. I wish I did. I don't have the data of what those caseloads or opportunities look like. So going in, I think I will have an amazing opportunity to look at what that looks like and then adapt or adjust that policy.
Mrs. Hefner, the 2 recommendations.
I believe absolutely police should be able to look at that body cam before they're interviewed, but I do believe that they should be interviewed. So there are those 2 things. But let me tell you what's going on with this police force. And let me tell you something that No-Show Holt is doing. He's trying to bring in a Baltimore-based group called 21 CP Solutions. If you don't know about it, look it up. 21 CP Solutions is a Baltimore-based group that wanted to defund the police. And he is wanting to sign a contract with that organization to have them come in and tell our police how, when, and where they can police. They also want to put community social workers in the cars. It is not acceptable. That is not policing, and that is absolutely going toward defunding the police. We need to be looking at these contracts and what this particular mayor is doing. We don't need the East Coast, we don't need the West Coast telling us what we need to do right here in Oklahoma City. Why is Oklahoma City needing them? We don't. We can handle our own issues. We know who we are. We need to restore this city. We need to restore the morale of this city, the morale of our police and firefighters and our first responders. It's so important that we give them back their dignity, we give them pay, and we take care of them, because it will make our society better. We don't need Baltimore coming in here. We don't need California coming in here. We don't need them telling us how to police, how to build, how to run our lives in Oklahoma City. We are a unique people right in the dead center of America, and we can be the emanating beacon across everywhere, setting the model for how it's done. We don't need either East or West Coast doing that for us.
Mrs. Hefner, you said officers should be able to watch the video. Why
absolutely.
is that?
I believe that it's important because they're the front line of defense, and they encounter individuals that often are impaired. So it's important for them to be able to watch and reassess rather than in the moment and seeing the interaction, but be able to kind of reassess how they responded and how the person responded to them. It's a great teaching tool in the moment before they're interviewed, and then that interaction is typically done with a supervisor or with a sergeant that's on duty there within their police department, and that's how good solutions are done. And then they come up with a reasonable way to start working through other situations like that.
Mr. Urbanic, you said they should not be able to, just 30 seconds, why should they not be able to view that?
Well, I mean, if that is something that the FOP is on board with, I don't have a problem with that. I think that it may give some insight that they might have otherwise not had.
So you originally said they shouldn't be able to view the video, right?
I think he said it was fair.
Right. I wouldn't make an absolute prohibition, but that's the recommendation. Yeah, I think that's a fair recommendation. I'm not quite sure what the FOP's position on that is, and so I would get with them and see what they had to say about it, get their perspective as well.
Mr. Lawson, you had 30 more seconds. You had some time to think about it. Do you want 30 seconds as well? Okay, he's good. All right, well, we're going to move on. Turns out I have the next question for you, however. So, IMSA's call response times are not meeting the benchmark in OKC's current contract with the Public Trust Authority. Matt Patterson and NonDoc has an article up this morning. You guys can go read more about it if you want. Want to ask you, the OKC mayor appoints 4 of the positions for the Public Trust Authority that oversees IMSA. So what do you believe should be done to improve IMSA's response times?
Very simple. You got to perform. Right. So if IMSA can't perform, then we've got to find a way or another company that can perform. Because I was a victim of my father having a heart attack, and response time is important to me. And if IMSA is not responding in a good fashion, right, lives are being lost. So it's very simple. It's life or death for me. So if IMSA is not getting the job done, we're going to find another contract company to come in and provide those services.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hefner, 90 seconds to you, same question. What should we do?
I've had lots of experience with IMSA. But let me tell you something. IMSA is a system that has been broken since I can remember. I am 60 years old, and at least for the last 40 years, I've heard about it, encountered it with my grandparents, with my great-grandparents, with my husband, with a child that died at home in my arms. I am telling you, I know what those response times are like, and he is correct. Jimmy Lawson is correct. Thank you, Jimmy. However, there is a way forward. There is a path forward. It's called a grid system. We have never enacted it. We need to enact it. A grid system would give us the ability to send these units out within a reasonable demographic, within a reasonable time, and it's never been done. I do not know why, but we're seeing these response times take so long, and yes, life and death hangs in the balance in these situations. A grid system is the key. Trust me, I will make it happen.
Thank you, Mr. Urbanic. 90 seconds, same question to you.
Yeah, so in the article, it made it seem like it was basically an issue of personnel shortage. And so we need to figure out how do we get more people working for IMSA, and how do we rearrange things in a way that we can we can be more efficient with the people that we have. So, of course, we got to look at pay. Are they paid enough? What is the pay of IMSA compared to other surrounding communities? Similar with our police, they used to be the highest paid in the state. Now they are not. They should definitely be the highest paid in the state, and IMSA deals with things in our city that other similar organizations don't necessarily deal with, and so they need to be paid accordingly. And it also mentioned I believe it was the EMT versus paramedics, and sending people out that are not as highly trained as others on things that might be less critical. So I think there's ways of doing things without just completely getting rid of it, because obviously we have to replace it. And one of the proposals was that the fire department was going to do it. And so I don't know if that's quite the solution. Maybe we should get some inputs from them first before we make a huge decision like that. But they're probably going to be short on people as well. And we also need to make sure that we're not throwing barriers in front of people who want to be in IMSA as far as vaccine and mask mandates.
Let me ask a follow-up of Ms. Hefner. I know you've got
Sure.
the mic. Do you believe that the fire department should be considered to run?
No, I do not. The fire department is already overloaded. You cannot believe that the calls that they get on any number of days or nights. I visited ladder number 1, spent hours with them, went out on a call with them. I know what kind of pressure they're under. They are uniquely suited to certain services. They should not be saddled with life-saving. However, they are the first on the scene, ironically, because there are more ladders out there, more departments out there than there are IMSA silos. There are 4 silos. That's why I say a grid system would work great. Remember this, IMSA, our firefighters, our police, they are worked to death. They are good people. They're working as hard as they can, but they can't be saddled with these issues.
Mr. Lawson, thoughts on the fire department potentially running the EMT program, or the EMS program, I'm sorry?
The fire department has their hands loaded, so I don't want to add in that new dynamic to try to do the IMSA type work for the city. So absolutely not. I'm not for the fire department trying to provide that type of service.
Thank you very much. Storm, you have another bonus question.
So fun. Hey, this question is going to be to everyone. Whoever wants it first can take it. Most Oklahoma City Police Department arrestees are booked into the troubled Oklahoma County Jail. Unlike many other big league cities, Oklahoma City does not operate its own jail. What role, if any, should the city play in funding the new jail being proposed by county commissioners?
Oh, please let me have this.
Sure.
Thank
90
you.
seconds.
We have got money that went into MAPS 4 for a mental health facility. We have got a jail that is crumbling, falling apart. We've got a jail, my dad has served in the county jail to the people, not as an inmate, but as a doctor to those inmates. And it's on the 13th floor that they have to go. When they come in intake, everybody that comes in that intake has to go up to the 13th floor, stopping at every floor to get there to be checked out, whether it's mental health or it's physical health, whether they've got COVID, they've got the flu, they've got strep throat, they've got some other ailment. It is absolutely a travesty. That thing is poorly built. We need a new jail, number one, and we need to marry that money, the millions of dollars that are being put into a mental health facility, so that when people are arrested, when they're picked up, they can be assessed on the same site and sent to exactly where they need to be. Because we've got nonviolent offenders right now being thrown into jail cells with murderers. We've got people that are suffering from drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and all sorts of other things being thrown into these cells willy-nilly, and it is very dangerous. It's dangerous for them, it's dangerous for the city, it's dangerous for the officers. We need to stop that. We need to have the proper facility, and we need to have the mental health facility right there with a new jail. That's how we handle it.
I think the estimate is $300 million to build a new jail. How much of that, Ms. Hefner, should be paid for by the city and how?
It's a marriage, and it's true. There may be a bond issue coming, and if that happens, then it can be a beautiful marriage between the two. But that money still from MAPS 4 is uniquely suited to be able to help out, purchase the property, purchase the necessary layout. They've got to do architectural renderings. They've got to do engineering. I understand this. I develop property.
So you'd use MAPS 4 money to help build the new jail?
Absolutely, but it would be married with the mental health facility that's already there. So it would not take a back seat to the mental health would not take a back seat to the jail. They would work symbiotically, and it would be beautiful for this community. It's what we need.
Thank you. Mr. Urbanic, Mr. Lawson?
Yeah, I have been inside that jail many times, and I've been in other jails, and I've been in prisons, and our jail is an abomination. It is a humanitarian issue. And if you say, hey, the January 6 people, they need to be treated better, then we also need to treat people in our county jail better. And the vast majority of people now who are arrested by OCPD go to our jail. So I feel that Oklahoma City has a vested interest in having a jail, in having a humane jail. And so I would certainly support using some MAPS money. I'll do everything I can, whether it's as an advocate or just help facilitate the process in getting a new jail. I would imagine it should be somewhere off-site, and maybe the county can sell the current land, and they can use some of that money to pay for the jail. But certainly we have a vested interest in making sure everybody that's arrested by OCPD is treated humanely.
Mr. Lawson, what role should the city play in the new jail?
Sure, so we know that the county jail is a piece of junk. We know that. And I think the relationship between the county and the city is important because it is a partnership. What that money looks like, I think, needs to be negotiated, maybe through a bond issue on the city side or some other type of creative financing. But however, I think because what the county jail represents in the city, without a doubt, it's a partnership. So I will be for conversations, sitting at the table with the county commissioners, figuring out what that magical relationship looks like monetarily. So without a doubt, we got to build another one because it's a junk.
Thank you very much. That is the end of round 3. Quick round of applause. We're going to go into our final round, and this is called the politics of politicking, and we're going to ask individual questions of the individual candidates. It's not going to go to each question to all 3 folks. In this one, we're going to give you 90 seconds to answer. And Mr. Urbanic, this one is to you. On your website, you tout your Christian faith, but you also say that you want to, quote, end any programs that serve as a magnet for the homeless. What specific programs are you talking about, and what do you say to faith-based organizations that house, clothe, or feed those experiencing homelessness?
Well, so let me be clear. I think the #1 magnet for homeless is Mayor No-Show here, you can see that homelessness has increased dramatically since he became mayor. And I do believe that no, we definitely need to reach out to these people. Look, the homeless, they are somebody's child, somebody's son, somebody's daughter, somebody's mother, father, brother, etc. So if we're going to value every life, we need to value their life as well. And so my plan, I call it the plan to reduce barriers to get into housing, a housing first plan. And I've talked to homeless, and they say they're having a hard time getting into housing because of this and that. But you look at other successful programs, and some that I've been researching is in Houston, Utah, they use a housing first approach. And so when they get them in there, it's easier for the people helping them to deal with all the other issues once they've stabilized one aspect of their life. But something that I would add on to that, and that is not on the report that came out from the task force, is what I call a move up program, because the problems that some of those housing first places have run into is people are staying in that housing for a year, 2 years, or longer, where we need to then move them into a more traditional housing, so we're not just continuously building more housing for housing first.
Thank you. That sounds like new programs. On your side, it says that you want to end the programs that are a magnet, and I don't believe Mr. Holt is a program himself, so what programs are you referring to when you've said that?
Well, so that's part of the research that I would do. I'm an attorney, and I've done a lot of great research in my career, which is one of the reasons why I've been so successful, particularly in those 3 lawsuits. But no, we need to look at and interview people and see, is there something about Oklahoma City that's different than the other locations that is drawing the homeless here, and address those.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Storm.
All right, Mrs. Hefner, your documented social media history includes some incendiary comments. You've called Islam an evil culture, not a religion, and when President Barack Obama was in office, you compared him to Hitler. Should people in Oklahoma City be concerned that you would be a divisive mayor with a propensity for making negative statements?
You know, I think that we all learn and we all give each other grace. And I think that some of those comments, while I might revisit them and sit down and have meaningful conversation with people across the city about those were done a long time ago. And I will say, you know, in escaping Islam and the oppression, my grandfathers had crosses tattooed in the middle of their hand. One was from Nazareth and one was near the Sea of Galilee. And they were identified just like Holocaust victims who had the tattoos on their arms. They were identified because you only reach with your right hand when you're in those cultures. The left hand is considered dirty. And so those people were oppressed, and it was a slow death. You couldn't get food, you couldn't get clothing, you couldn't get a place to stay, and that's why my family came to America, to seek a better life and to become purely American. And I slept on floors when my parents were doing things to raise us up. I've seen it. My grandfather lived in a dugout cave on dirt floors to become American. They came here legally, and they came here to be free. And so I understand that. And so, yes, it is a very negative culture, and it does things that are oppressive, and I don't agree with that. It's just like slavery. I don't agree with it. It's insipid. It should be eradicated from our culture, from our world. Unfortunately, it's been here since the beginning of time. I don't know how I personally am getting rid of it, but I would like to have those conversations. It's very important that the things that we say do hold value, and I would like to sit down and have healing conversations, offer grace back and forth. It's very important to me to make sure that we heal our community. Thank you.
All right. Next question to Mr. Lawson. Your opponents have raised more money and have out-advertised you. What do you tell more liberal and moderate citizens who may feel obliged to support Mr. Holt because they view him as more palatable Republican than your opponents?
Yeah, sure. I think in the grand scheme of things, in this political environment, that we have to keep in mind that money can't buy votes, right? Your relatability and your message and your impact and your ability to connect with people will have the ability to garnish votes. So money for me is not an issue, right? My issue is making sure that we get enough in front of voters and understand what our platform items are. So at the end of the day, money is money. However, I've never seen an election where I'm standing in a booth where I can hand somebody some money to check the box, right? So I think the idea is it's about exposure, it's about your program and your platform. So I think money can't buy that.
Thank you very much. That is the end of our quick round 4. Quick round of applause. Okay, thank you. And I want to move to our closing statements that are going to be 2 minutes each. We'll go the same order we did with the opening statements. Mr. Urbanic, we'll start with you.
I am a man of action. I've done real things in our community that have helped a lot of people, a lot of businesses. I went up against a tyrant that unlawfully shut businesses down. I went up against a city, I went up against a state, and they all backed down and we won. So I think the best indicator of how I'm going to be as mayor is to look at the things that I've done. And so that, in addition to my military career, and so please evaluate the resumes of everybody that's here, and you'll see that I'm a man of substance and thoughtfulness. And so I also ask you to consider the platform that people have. I took time to sit down and write out my thoughts after researching and put pen to paper and post it online. So I encourage everybody to look at the websites of every candidate and see if they've even posted what their platform is. And so Trace, he brought up a part of my website, and I have subjected myself to scrutiny 4 months, and that's because it's there. So I encourage you to do that and evaluate the candidates based on that as well. But I would be honored to have your vote on February 8th, and let's keep Oklahoma City open for business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, good news, we still got plenty of bandwidth. Mr. Lawson, 2 minutes, closing statement to you.
Yes, in closing, as you have heard, putting people over politics is not just a slogan for me, but a way of life. No longer should we ignore the cries of help from all Oklahoma citizens. When the tough gets going, I will be here to stand for you, unlike him. If you have ever had a challenge of having your voice heard, or you have caught yourself not having hope, I'm here to be a voice for you and bring hope to you. I will lead with grace, mercy, and compassion. Nobody is better than anybody else. If you want a leader who will be by your side through the thick and thin, just like I stood next to my friend Julius Jones for 22 years, then I'll be honored to have your vote as your next Oklahoma City mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Hefner, 2 minutes to you.
Well, I'm Carol Hefner, and I'm here to earn your vote for mayor. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I am a wife, and I'm a community leader. I want to uphold Oklahoma's conservative values to keep our city safe and healthy. That is important, because the proper role of government is the protection of life, liberty, and property. That's it. As mayor, I'll represent the entirety of all the 8 wards. As mayor, I'll work against government corruption and waste, because it exists. We've got a swamp right here. And I'll audit the MAPS programs and clean this city up from the inside out. As mayor, I'm going to direct funds away from social spending programs and into the true and honest services of government to protect life, liberty, and property. Because the true social issues need to be dealt with from faith-based organizations, from private entities, and that's where it's healthiest and works best. Instead of looking to the east and west coasts to solve our problems, as Mayor No-Show does here, we need to look within and right here to consult with other conservative cities who have done a great job with the homelessness and with the crime. It's so important. As a conservative, I believe that socialism is a dream killer. Government handouts restrict people from working to achieve their dreams and God-given potential and purpose in life. You will never see me on a national stage, on national networks, touting the failed Biden, policies and tax plans that this man does, which kill economies. I'll never support mandates or lockdowns. Absolutely not. I fought for it. I am a woman of action, and I take action every single day. You will, as your mayor, I'm going to cut the red tape for businesses to grow and flourish in this city. We have got development that needs to happen. We've got to get down to City Hall and make sure that people have access to their permitting, access to their red lines, access to the right engineering, get it done quickly and get those projects off the ground. I promise to make our streets safer for our families and our businesses, and I will make this place shine like a beacon across the state. I'm Carol Hefner, and with your vote, these promises will be realities. You can count on me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all three of our candidates here. That concludes tonight's big league debate. We'll see you in 2026, and I earnestly mean this. I believe, Storm believes, all the partners, News 9, OKC Free Press, Oklahoma Gazette, City Sentinel, Generation Citizen, Together Oklahoma, League of Women Voters, and many more that we didn't have time to reach out to, believe that public debates matter. These discussions matter. These issues matter, and we want to set a culture in this city that we have these discussions ahead of elections. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.